Hello, hello. Finishing up my shake. And I wanted to come on here. And the reason I wanted to talk about this topic, I don't know if you read it, but it says, why did I get rid of fear and anxiety and stress and panic attacks in my life? And you're thinking, why would you not, right? I mean, who wouldn't do that if they could? Well, I didn't do it for the reasons that most people might think. It's not that my fear, my stress, my anxiety, my panic attacks were because I was dealing with bad things all the time. Now, the catalyst was what a lot of people would consider a bad thing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know, I truly lived under the belief that if I didn't have panic attacks, if I didn't live in fear, if I didn't worry constantly, that bad things would happen to me. So I really believed that my actions, first of all, how arrogant is that, right? I mean, if you think about it, I really believed that my actions were the cause and effect, or the cause that created the effect. So that if I wasn't constantly on guard all day long, every day, monitoring everything and everybody, that all that fear and anxiety and stress would be worse, because the things that I was having fear and anxiety and stress over would then happen. I mean, that was my mindset, was truly that that if I didn't worry, if I didn't have fear, if I didn't live that way, that those things would happen. So, you know, I'm coming in here today to share this story because there are so many people around me who suffer from this. And, you know, a lot of people look at me now and they go, you don't understand. Oh, hold up. I understand. I understand a lot more than you know. And anyone who knows my husband can certainly ask him that, because he lived through it with me. And so let me go back a little bit, and, you know, and in the interest of not making this video too long, I'm gonna kind of shorten some things. But, you know, my story started obviously as a girl growing up, just truly believing that bad things couldn't happen to me. And if you look back, I had lots of bad things that happened to me, but I always seemed to get out of them. So in my mind, that meant I was protected. And I didn't really have a strong faith of any sort. I didn't even know whether I believed in God or not. So it wasn't faith. It didn't feel like a guardian angel or anything like that. In my mind, in my arrogant mind, I honestly wondered sometimes, was this life a dream of mine? Because I always seem to get out of these scenarios, right? And, you know, I can remember getting in a really bad car accident at one point, and I remember this was already after I had fear and anxiety and all of those things. Hey, good morning, Suzanne. And I remember thinking right before I hit that car, I'll be able to stop. I always am. And I wasn't able to, right? Just further adding to my stress and anxiety. But the catalyst for fear and anxiety and panic attacks, hyperventilating, just literally like waking up in the middle of the night with pain, like physical pain in my body from head to toe. That's how scared I was. If I heard a noise in the house or something, I literally would be shaking all over if I had a bad nightmare or whatever. And, you know, the catalyst was, I had a daughter 20 years ago. It'll be 21 years ago in April. Her name is Mackenzie, and she was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. And although she wasn't breathing, they resuscitated her, and but she had her air supply cut off long enough that she got a brain bleed. And that brain bleed, they could not stop the damage of it. And so She was helicoptered out of the hospital that I was in because they didn't have a NICU at the time. And she was helicoptered to Johns Hopkins. I sent my husband to go be with her so that he could keep me updated. So he left, and I was stuck in the hospital without, with the doctors not allowing me to leave because I had a fever from giving birth. And when I look back on that time, it was one of those situations where every time the doctor walked into the room, the news just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was like, I don't even want to see a doctor, because every time I talk to a doctor, it's worse news. And, after about 10 hours after giving birth, they finally let me leave, and my mother drove me to meet up with my husband and my daughter at Johns Hopkins. And, we finally, again, the doctors kept coming in and everything kept getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, we got the worst news possible. And then the doctors stopped coming. And my husband and I just held that baby for 3 days until she went to be with the Lord. And what's kind of crazy about that whole time is neither one of us had a real faith. Neither one of us knew what we thought. But I can tell you, I talked to God a lot during that time. And, it's one of those things I heard someone say the other day. If you're praying, then you believe. You may not think you do, but you're talking to someone, right? And so what's crazy is when she took her final breath, spontaneously, the Lord's Prayer just came out of me. And I had learned it when I was like 7, and I had only really recited it at weddings and weddings, basically. And everyone in the room started saying it. And, that was it. And we left that hospital. And of course, I went through months and months of grief and crying out and anger and sadness and just trying to understand. Here I was, someone who never thought anything bad could happen to me, and the worst thing was happening to me. And I just couldn't figure out why. And I had all those same questions that a lot of people who aren't believers have. And they say, how could a God that is supposed to be loving allow these things to happen? And, I'm not going to go into a whole theological discussion here today. That's for another time. But I read lots of books, and I finally got this at least acceptance of the fact that God gave us this free will, and he's not going to reach down with a giant hand and pull you out from the way of the car that, sin entered the world. And because of that, we live fallen, we live broken, and suffering and sadness happens. But that from those things, some of the most amazing gifts have happened. And that was where I found peace, because, like you could look at MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? That wouldn't exist if a mother didn't lose a child from a drunk driver. And they were the catalyst to start a conversation about drunk driving. How many lives have been saved because someone stood up and said, this can't happen anymore? And so wonderful, beautiful things happen from tragedy. And from the passing of my daughter, we raised $25,000 towards an incubator at the hospital where I gave birth that now has a NICU that has an incubator in it. That was because of the money we were able to raise with friends and loved ones, through that tragedy. So know, God doesn't make bad things happen, but God will use those things for incredible, beautiful good. And there are just story after story after story of things like that. So, find peace and joy in that. But so what does this have to do with fear and stress and anxiety and panic attacks? Well, after that happened, I became a lunatic. just to put it mildly. I became afraid of everything because bad things could happen now. I knew it. It happened. A bad thing happened to me, and now I know it can happen. So I became afraid of everything. And I tried to control everything. And so every bad thing that happened in my life caused a panic attack. And when I say bad, I mean like, my husband had a lot of commission in his paychecks. His commission wasn't as high as we thought. It was complete and total meltdown, crying, screaming, freaking out, like a complete lunatic. I had anger issues because I was so angry if I couldn't control something. And so I would get really mad at my kids because I couldn't control their behavior. Don't they understand I'm trying to protect them, right? So it became almost an abusive anger, like, not a physical abuse by any means, but like screaming and but it was all about this just complete panic because I wasn't in control. I needed to control this. And it was all about my fear of that pain entering my life again, right? That I could experience that kind of pain, or my kids could have that pain, or my husband or a family member. So I held on to this stress and anger and panic and worry as my way to control things. But then those emotions got out of control if I couldn't control the situation. And so if you are someone who deals with fear and anxiety and worry, I want you to know that you can step back and you can say, I'm not in control. And that's scary as crap, isn't it? Isn't that scary that you're not in control? And that terrified me even more. And so it wasn't until I found my faith, right? Or should I say it found me, until I accepted Jesus into my life. And through that, I began to read the Bible. I began to read books. I began to learn that not only am I not in control, but I don't have to be. I don't have to be in control. I don't have to worry about things so they don't happen. That there is a loving God who is in control, and he will pull you through anything. And so, yes, there is a part of me that just like still every once in a while has this little panic attack every time my daughter's driving back to college, or my son is going outside of our little town driving his car. There's always that little bit of me that goes, oh, Lord, please put a veil of protection around them, but I also know that I have so much hope that no matter what happens in my life, I know that he's with me and he will get me through it, but that I am not free from pain and suffering. It is just a part of a fallen world. And, my prayer for you is that you can accept that and know that you can live every single day grateful for the blessings that you have. And, literally, even as recently as this past weekend, I had a little competition with the girls that I coach gymnastics in. It's been 5 years since I have coached gymnasts in a competition. And they're 5 to 8 year olds. They're in their very first level of gymnastics. But my nerves were like, I was so nervous that I didn't do a good enough job, that they were going to feel bad about themselves, or that the parents were going to be disappointed in me, or that the gym would be disappointed in me. And, that morning I finally just said, I'm going to let this go. And I prayed. I said, Lord, please take this from me. I cannot carry it. I need you to take this for me, and I am going to let it go. And when you believe and trust in that world that you're carrying releases, and you stand up taller, and you just feel lighter. I mean, talk about freedom. So I wanted to share a couple things that I did along the way. And, it's just like exercise. It takes practice, and it takes doing it a little bit at a time every single day, but knowing that your pain can be used for something good. I'm standing here right now. I'm sharing this story, and someone out there is going to listen to it. They're going to grow closer to God from it, and they're going to be filled by it, because it's not of me. I prayed before this that this message not be of me or for me or about me, that this message be about God's will for you. So if you're on the live or if you watch it later, know the message was meant for you. And, I hope that you have encouragement in that today. I did want to share a couple things. One, of course, I found my strength first here. And actually not in this particular one, but this little velveteen rabbit right here is my third actually, Bible that, the first one I read all the way through and it has duct tape here too. The second one, I had a beautiful, wonderful, amazing day reading the Bible, sitting out on my back patio in the sunshine, came inside to get a drink, started talking to my husband, and it started raining. And so I still have it, but the pages are all stuck together. And so then I was given this one at a women's conference. And as you can tell, I have loved it very much, and I'm about ready to look for a new one. But, finding hope in here is the first place always to go. So how do you read the Bible if you've never read the Bible before? I suggest you start in the New Testament. I know that's not the beginning, but the New Testament is where you find your hope. And then it is where you begin to understand the Old, because the Old is the lead up to the New. So just remember the New Testament, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, start there. You can read Psalms. Psalms is, for me, reading Psalms first. I tried that. And although I found some hope in there, I was just very confused by it, because to me it sounded very Shakespearean. And that, when I read Shakespeare in high school, it was discouraging for me because I just didn't understand it. So now I can read Psalms and I can get a lot from it, but it's been almost 10 years of this journey now. So, but I started by reading the Gospels first, and then I went through and read from beginning to end. And when things were confusing and when they didn't make any sense, I just kept going and just went through it. And there are books in here like Numbers where you're just like, and I just went, you know what? If God put it in here, it's important, and I'm going to read through it. And it's name after name after name after name. And, but so also, my husband found a book called What is the New Testament All About? And that was very helpful. We both read that. Then when it comes to fear itself and stress, this was one of the first books someone gave me, and I read this, and this is the first place I learned that it says in the Bible 365 times, do not fear or have courage or something of that sort. And I just went, that's not an accident. And so I said, okay, Lord, you have given me one for every single day of the year. And I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold it in my heart. And I'm going to keep that very close. And I'm going to keep moving forward with this journey that you're sending me on. And then the other thing that I did was so that I could sleep at night, I created a little mantra that I would say over and over till I fell asleep, because I was one of those people that would lie in bed and picture bad things happening to people and worry about the next day. And, and so I didn't sleep, I just would stay up for hours. And so I just made this little mantra, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am strong, I am loved, I am, just something like that, just over and over and over and over until I fell asleep. And slowly but surely, I started falling asleep faster and faster. And then the other thing was when I started having visions of bad things happening to people in my family, once I got to the point in my faith walk that I accepted that the enemy is real, I started saying, you know what? In the name of Jesus Christ, Satan, get out of my head. And I would say it over and over and over and over until one day all of a sudden I went, I don't think I've had a vision of something bad for like days. And it just was like, whoa. And slowly but surely, I've gone on this journey and I've just continued to trust and to grow in that. And again, it takes practice. And you see these headphones? I start my day. I never wake up and have frustration or doubt or say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Oh, I don't want to do this today. Oh, it's Monday. Oh, it's whatever. I put a positive motivation from YouTube on these. And, you know, I just go through and look for positive motivation. I look for Christian motivation. And I just start my day with happy stuff. And that is extremely helpful. And throughout the day, if I'm starting to negative talk my own head, I'll put something positive on and just totally turn that around and keep going forward. So I hope that this video finds encouragement for someone. I felt very drawn to share it today. I don't know why. And well, one of the catalysts for that was my dryer broke. And I just thought to myself, as I'm pulling out the load from the washer and the load that's wet that I had moved over to the dryer when it didn't start, and I'm finding places all over the basement to hang all this stuff up. Socks, underwear, everything hanging all over my basement right now. And I thought to myself, we have not budgeted for a new dryer. I have a trip to LA coming up in a couple weeks for my business. I was invited for a leadership weekend to LA. And then the next month I have a cruise that I earned through my business. And I'm like, I do not have in my budget right now a dryer. And in the past, I would have panicked and I would have freaked out and I would have cried and I would have been like overwhelmed to the point where I couldn't even figure out what to do with all these wet clothes. And today I did a workout that kicked my derriere. But it was only 20 minutes. And then I walked over to the dryer and I started pulling stuff out and laying stuff out, and I found places to hang everything. And sure enough, there was room for everything. And I just laughed through it. And I said, you know what? If I have to do this for the next couple weeks till I, you know, earn the money to pay for that dryer, I'll do that. And I'll do it with joy. And wow, has life changed. And so that's kind of what inspired the message. So anyway, have a very blessed and beautiful day today. And if you think this message would help someone, if you know someone who suffers with fear, anxiety, worry, panic attacks, share it with them, because I understand. And, you know, let them know that if they ever want to have a conversation, they can message me. I am more than grateful to talk to someone about this, because I feel very much like God gives us our stories. You know, a lot of our pain and suffering He uses through us. So our stories are there to help others, and especially stories of overcoming something. And, you know, I really feel like I have turned that corner. And it's not that it's not a constant practice. Just like I've gotten in really great shape, that doesn't mean I stop exercising. Wouldn't that be awesome? You just get to work your butt off and get in shape and then just go, I'm done. Yeah, no. All right. Have a blessed and beautiful day, guys.